Welcome back to Digital Dominators, the podcast where we explore the digital skills, systems, and strategies that help you grow your business in the digital age. I'm your host, Sooz Young, founder of Technology Coaching, and this is another solo episode, so it's just you and me again. Last week, we talked about why so many people feel frustrated with AI tools and why the problem is almost never the tool itself. We covered the AI tools wars, why people blame the platform when results disappoint, and what prompt engineering actually means in practice. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, I really recommend going back to it first. It sets the scene beautifully for everything we're covering today, because today we're going practical. We're talking about the biggest prompting mistakes people make, and I'm going to walk you through some of the specific methods and frameworks we teach inside our Practical AI Prompting Fundamentals course, so you can start applying them straight away. So let's get into it. Once people start understanding that prompting is really about communication and context, the next thing that becomes obvious is how many small mistakes we all make when we first start using these tools. And I include myself in that because when AI tools first started appearing, everyone was experimenting and trying to figure out how they worked. But after several years of training businesses to use AI effectively, there are a few patterns that appear again and again. The first mistake is simply being too vague. This is probably the most common one that I see. Someone opens an AI tool and types something like, write me a blog post about marketing, or give me some ideas about my business. So from that user's perspective, it feels like a reasonable request. They understand that AI tool should know what they're talking about and then just go ahead and do it. But from the system's perspective, it's almost impossible to deliver something that's truly useful to that user, because there's no real context to that request. It doesn't know the audience, it doesn't know the goal, it doesn't know the perspective, and it doesn't know the format that you actually need it in. So it fills in most of the gaps with general information that it can find. It either uses context that it's had already in the memory of it's being communicated with, or it will go and find that context elsewhere. And this is all dependent on whether you pay for the tool or not. And that's often why the output feels generic. The second mistake is expecting the AI to understand your business automatically. This is something I see a lot when people start experimenting with the AI tools, especially for content creation. They assume that the system somehow knows who they are, what their business does, and how they normally communicate. And sometimes they feel that that should be represented across everywhere that they're using the AI tool as well. But unless you provide that context, the AI has no idea. I'm going to give some examples throughout this podcast episode because I'm going to reflect on experiences that I've had whilst I've been working with people. So I remember one workshop where someone asked the AI to just simply write a LinkedIn post about my audience. And so they'd assumed that the AI, because they'd been using it before, could give them something back that was in alignment with what they would normally say. So when that response came back sounding very broad, they were really disappointed. It didn't reflect who they were. But when we looked at the prompt together, there was no real explanation of who their audience was. I also asked the question, are you paying for that AI tool? And the answer was no. So then what we did is we added a few sentences describing the types of clients they'd worked with in the past, the challenges that those clients were facing, and then the output of that prompt became much more relevant than it was previously. The third mistake is stopping after the first answer. So this one is quite interesting because many people treat AI responses as that's the final response, when in reality, the first response is usually just the starting point of the conversation. So this is how I like to think about it when I'm talking about it with people, because it's the same as when you ask a person a question. Usually they don't really know how to answer if they don't know you. They're looking for further context. They're looking for further information in order to provide the correct or responsive answer to you. That's all data. So the most effective users of AI, they rarely stop after that first output. They refine it, they ask for variations, they add more context, or they ask the system to expand on specific parts. They treat the AI as a collaborator rather than a vending machine. The fourth mistake is thinking prompting is about finding one magic phrase. You sometimes see these prompts shared online that are described as the ultimate prompt or the secret that changes everything. While these examples can be interesting, they often create the impression that prompting is about memorizing clever formulas. In reality, effective prompting is clarity, context, and iteration. The people who get the best results are the ones that are comfortable refining the conversation as they go. And those who have like a small toolkit of reliable methods or structures that they've used in the past that they can go back to when they find that things aren't working with the AI tool. So this brings me to what I actually want to share with you today. Inside the Practical AI Prompting Fundamentals course, we teach a set of specific methods and frameworks. And I want to give you a taste of a few of them right now, because even understanding the basics of these will change how you interact with AI immediately. The first one is called the Act As method. This is one of the simplest and the most effective ways to improve the quality of any AI output, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of asking the AI to do a task, you tell it who to be first. So instead of typing, write a social media post about AI tools, you might say, act as a social media marketing strategist and write a carousel script for an Instagram aimed at small business owners who feel overwhelmed by AI tools. You see the difference in that prompt? There's context, there's clarity being given to that, and extra information about the audience, the format that you want it to be put in. The second prompt gives an AI role, a task, an audience, and a purpose. And that's what changes the output. The Act As method works because it narrows the AI's focus. Without a role, AI tries to be everything at once. With a role, it knows how to think before it responds, and you can use it across almost any professional scenario, from drafting a proposal to analysing customer feedback to planning a content strategy. And really understanding the role that's required in order to do that task goes back to actually what jobs are and what tasks that are people are given per role. And if you don't know what that is, another way to just start the interaction with the tool is to ask it, first of all, what is the best act that you can have for this prompt of this action that I want you to take? And then it will start to understand more about how it's supposed to respond to you. So it could be like, is this a marketing role, or is this a social media manager role? Is this a strategist role? You can get more clarity or from the tool the more that you get that fundamental upfront information to it and what it needs from you. Method 2 I'm going to talk about is called the Ask Questions method. Here's something people never think to do, and it's a game changer. Instead of just asking the AI to go ahead and complete a task, you instruct it to ask you questions first. So you might say, before you write this email sequence, please ask me 5 questions about my audience, the offer I'm promoting, and the call to action that I want to use. The AI then asks you those questions, you answer them, and then when it produces the output, it's built on your actual context, not its best guess. This method works because it mirrors how a good consultant would behave. Before doing the work, they want to understand who is this for, what the goal is, and what success looks like. It's that what, when, where, why, how, who method. When you allow AI to do the same thing, the quality of that draft improves dramatically. And it reduces that back and forth and saves you a huge amount of time refining the outputs that miss the mark. And all of this back and forth with the AI tool will obviously take up more computing space. It will use more usage of your AI credits. It will train it to do the things you don't want it to do instead of actually you giving it effective context every single time. So even just adding that ask me questions until you understand the action clearly at the end of every prompt, if it's not giving you enough clarity, really, really enhances the experience that you're getting from the AI tool. Method 3 is the PTCF framework. Now, I talked a little bit about this last week, and I'm going to go into it in more detail now. And this is one that is just almost that fundamental for any prompting that you're doing with any of the AI tool. So once you start applying these methods, the natural next step is having that reliable structure that you can come back to every time. And one of the most useful frameworks I teach is called the PTCF, which this stands for Persona, Task, Context, and Format. Most weak prompts fail because they're missing at least one of these 4 things. So I'm going to break it down for you quickly just now. Persona is who the AI should act as. It's that act as method that I talked about previously. The T for task is what you want the AI tool to do. You want it to use clear, specific verbs like summarize, analyze, create, or recommend, rather than using kind of the vague phrases with like help me with. C is for context, and that is the background information. So that could be things like who is the output for, where will it be used, what is the goal? And F is for format, and that is how you want the response to be presented. Is it bullet points? Is it a table? Is it a word? Has it got a specific word limit? Is there a specific tone? All these 4 together help a good structure of a prompt. And the more that you practice this, the easier it becomes. So here's a quick example of how this all comes together. Instead of saying, write a LinkedIn post about AI, a PTCF structured prompt might look like this. Act as a social media marketing strategist. Create 5 LinkedIn post ideas. The target audience is small business owners in the UK who are curious about AI, but they feel overwhelmed by the options. Provide a 1-sentence hook for every idea, formatted as bullet points. So every element is in there. The AI tool knows exactly what you need, and the output will reflect that. And the last method I'm going to talk about is called the primer method. This one is particularly powerful if you want AI to write in your voice or to produce outputs that are based on your actual content rather than generic information. The primer method works by giving the AI source material to review before it starts the task. So for example, you might paste in a couple of your existing blog posts and say, please read these and understand my tone of voice and writing style. When you're ready, write a new 400-word blog post on AI prompting using the same tone and structure. Because the AI has reviewed your existing content, first, the new piece will feel more like you. It picks up the patterns in how you write, the rhythm, the vocabulary, and the way that you structure ideas. And then you can use this same approach with kind of transcripts, reports, product designs, client emails, any source material that gives the AI the context it needs to produce something genuinely useful. And how I work and I help my clients to work is that with whatever AI tool that you're using and paying for is creating projects for each one of the specific tasks or that are the collection of tasks that you want it to do or categories, and then adding the context to that project so that it means any new conversation that you have within that project, it will iterate the structure and the flow of what you're looking for. So for examples for us is that we've got a podcast project and the project has instructions. So for how that output should be produced. And this is different from how we would produce content for other parts in the technology coaching business. So, for example, our proposals, for example, our specific client work, for example, our social media content or our email marketing. Each one of these areas have a separate project, and they're provided with our brand assets, the logo, the formatting, their tone of voice, and we provide it with all the context up front. And then for every single chat that we start with it, it's provided with further context. So it's been given the data so that it knows how to effectively communicate and work with us. These tools are data monsters. They're going to work with the information that they're giving. So if you don't have these things in place, one of the best things to get started with is really, if you're a business owner, really work with a human being, work with a professional to nail down what your tone of voice is. And that's what we've done over our almost 9 years in business. We've got our brand assets, we've got our tone of voice guidelines, and this is what then makes it easy for us to be able to share with the AI tool within our own specific ecosystem. If you don't have that, go and work with somebody to be able to get that to start off with, because there's a ton of great copywriters out there and brand strategists that will help you work this out. If you're working within a team and you don't have an understanding of the way that the company is to be represented, how in the communication style, this is where departments need to start to be talking together even more effectively. The business development team should be preparing guidelines to other departments so that if they're interacting with AI tools and then creating content that's used either in-house or out of house, that communication style has to be the same across. There's a company I'm going to start working with, and that's where we're talking about is what is the front of house comms compared to the back of house comms. And then when you're sharing that with any AI tool for any content creation, then that means that the tone of voice is used specifically for what area of the business. So it's super important that you get these things fundamentally right. So the data, the context is effective first before you add that into AI tools. As a creator, I used to spend hours re-recording voiceovers to get the perfect tone. But finding reliable voice talent, booking studio time, and editing takes forever, and it can break the bank. That's why I recommend 11 Labs. It generates ultra-realistic AI voices and even clones your own, all in seconds. With natural-sounding speech, multilingual support, and seamless text-to-speech conversion, 11 Labs powers podcasts, audiobooks, training modules, and more. No mic required. Ready to level up your audio? Try it free today at allmylink.me/TC11labs and bring your scripts to life with 11 Labs. When you step back and look at everything we've talked about across these 2 episodes, something quite interesting starts to emerge. Prompting is not just a trick for getting better answers from an AI tool. It's actually becoming a new form of digital literacy. If you think back 20 or 30 years, one of the most important skills people had to learn was how to search the internet effectively. In those early days of the web, people would type a very vague query into search engines and then get overwhelmed by the irrelevant results. I remember this even back in 2011 when we were training people on how to use their Apple devices effectively. Even at that point, there was people that didn't know how to effectively search on Google, how to ask it the right questions in order to get those relevant results coming back. There were lots of different strategies that people were sharing at that time on what extra ways that you can structure your sentence on how you add that into a search tool. And this is no different when it comes to prompt engineering. So it's about understanding the flow and the structure of how to communicate with that tool in order to get the best results. So over time, as you're interacting, or if I go back to those kind of Google and searching days, we learned how to be more precise with how we communicated and searched on those search tools. We learned the structure of search queries, and that always then led back to what keywords were. We learned how to evaluate the sources that were coming in and not always look at the ads at the top because people were paying for those. We learned how to scroll down and look for things a little bit more. It became more natural in our behavior of how we interacted with those search engine tools. It's no different now. Those skills eventually became second nature. And I remember even kind of 20 years ago when the word Google was put into the dictionary, that phrase, just Google it. It's going to be the same as we move into the AI tools. It's not going to be far off when we're going to say just AI it, ask ChatGPT it. We're seeing that already. But today we're seeing a very similar shift with the AI and how we're interacting with it. Instead of searching for information, we're increasingly collaborating with systems that generate ideas, write content, analyze data, and support decision making. But to unlock that capacity or capability, we need to know how to communicate with these systems clearly. And that's really what prompting is. It's the ability to guide an AI system towards the outcome that you want by providing the context, the structure, and the direction. And the reason this matters so much is that AI is rapidly becoming embedded in almost every digital tool that we use. It's appearing in email platforms, design software, analytics tools, productivity apps, and customer service systems. And whether we realize it or not, the way that we interact with technology is changing. The people who learn how to work effectively with these systems will be able to move faster, experiment more easily, and generate ideas in ways that simply weren't possible before. The people who don't develop that skill will often feel like the technology is confusing, unreliable, or overhyped. And that's why I often say that prompting is not just about using AI tools, it's developing a mindset that allows you to work alongside that intelligent system. So if you take anything away from these 2 episodes, it is learn a few frameworks, interact with the tools in that structure, and use that again and again to iterate, to practice, to learn the best way of communicating back and forth with this tool. That means that going forward, anytime that you go and interact with that tool, you'll follow that structure and you're much more likely to get better results without wasting credits, wasting time, wasting energy, being more sustainable, being more effective in how you're communicating. We are talking about using AI to enhance how we're working, to speed up, to help our flow, to be more efficient. But that will only happen once you've got those fundamental kind of skills in place. And that's what I'm seeing with all the clients that I've worked with and that have been through our prompting fundamentals course. So I've went through 4 of those today. Recap and listen to them again and start that PTCF format for PTCF structure framework for interacting with the AI tools. So if you've been listening across these 2 episodes and recognizing some of these patterns in your own experience with AI tools, here's what I want you to take away. The 4 methods I've touched on today, act as, ask questions, PTCF, and primer, are just a starting point. Inside the Practical AI Prompting Fundamentals course, we'll go much deeper. You'll learn additional frameworks, including RICE for high-stake outputs, the Break It Down method for tackling large or complex tasks, and the Prompt Refinement Protocol for diagnosing why a prompt isn't working and fixing it quickly. Every lesson includes clear explanations, real business examples, and prompts you can copy, adapt, and reuse straight away. Whether you're using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or any other AI platform, the underlying skill is the same, and these methods work across all of them. You can find the practical AI prompting fundamentals course inside the lab at Technology Coaching in the link in the show notes. And if you'd also like to understand where your business sits across digital foundations, automation, AI, integration, marketing systems, cybersecurity, and data maturity, take the Digital Setup and Systems Health Check. It takes around 3 minutes and gives you structured clarity across all the 6 areas of your business. Again, you can find that in the show notes as well. If you found these episodes useful, the best thing that you can do is share them with someone who's currently experimenting with AI tools, but feeling like they're not quite getting the results they expected. Because once people understand how prompting works, their entire relationship with AI tends to change. In the next episode, we're going to look at another area of where many businesses struggle when it comes to digital technology, and that's choosing the right tools in the first place. There are thousands of digital tools available, and many business owners choose them based on what someone else recommended or what they saw online. But the right tool for your business usually sits at the intersection of several different factors, including the way you work, the way that your team works, and your experience your customers have with technology. So in the next episode, we're going to unpack how to think about digital tools properly and why the goal isn't to find the most popular tool, but the one that actually fits your digital ecosystem. I will see you in the next episode of Digital Dominators.